go.
Thank you for your interest in our paper, Does Your Decision-Making Process Protect Customer Value? I'm Annette Schöttle from Refine Projects, and with me are Paz Arroyo from DPR and Randy Christensen from COVI. Next. So why do we choose this topic? Based on the literature and based on our experience and practice, what we see is that the decision-making process is often highly fragmented, short-term oriented, and unclear. So how can we make very good decisions when all those kinds of issues occur? The value, furthermore, is often interpreted and assumed by the project team. And as we all know, quite often cost and value are not separated when making decisions. So we have a big bias in here. That makes decision, next, very inefficient. And that's how we came to our research approach and our research question. Next. So here with this paper, we wanted to focus on how does choosing by advantages support making deliberate decisions based on values, and there we help to deliver value for a project. In order to work on this topic, we use theoretical discussion based on literature. Next. So before coming into the discussion, we first have to define the vocabulary, because it's often quite unclear what the terms values, goals, criteria, and value delivery mean. So when we talk about values, we define values based on literature and beliefs. When we talk about value, we mean outcomes based on an evaluative judgment. Goals, in comparison, are guides for action or performance levels. And criteria is a decision rule or guideline. Next. So how do we then generate value? When we think about our projects, we have targets and constraints. Next. So at the end of the day, we want to make a decision. And to make a decision, we need criteria to make a decision. But how do we get to the criteria? The criteria are based on our goals. And our goals, of course, are based on our values, on our beliefs. So this all has an impact on how we generate value. Next.
And for this, normally in the industry, we have different strategies for managing value generation. And the two of them we're looking at here are value management and target value delivery. Value management comes from a very controlled environment where you want to control what value you actually deliver. The process is aiming at providing optimal project outcomes. We'll start still focusing on time, cost, and quality. So we're thinking about very much about system thinking here. And this normally comes with a lot of different interventions and workshops. And the problem here is that that can be seen as addition to normal design management. Target value delivery, on the other side, is very much process-based. And focusing again on cost and on delivering better value as well for the industry. Next. So in many ways, these two actually overlaps, where value management aiming again on controlling value generation while reducing cost. We see in target value delivery that we have this throughout the whole process, the whole project, where value management focuses very much on the early phases actually. And even though we have in the industry different strategies to manage this and perhaps different backgrounds to want to manage value delivery in the projects, when it comes to it, actually where we decide and make decisions are key points to actually value delivery. Next.
So when we go to the actual decision process, we find choosing by advantages system a very good method to help drive these conversations around to drive value generation. So we start with the stage setting phase, which includes what's the purpose of the decision, includes what are the circumstances, the concerns, the needs from the different stakeholders, And all of this comes also from the values these stakeholders have. So with this, within this phase, the stakeholders have to agree also in what's a must-have and what's a want-have criteria. Then the second phase has to do with innovation, how you create the, formulate, discover the alternatives, and determine and display attributes for these alternatives. Then you have the actual decision-making phase, where you actually have to get more granular into the context and understand how the alternatives you have, you're considering in this decision process perform in terms of the attributes they have for this particular decision, determine what are the advantages, and decide on the importance of advantages of each one of those alternatives. And then we have the reconsideration phase, which is reviewing the previous phases and also thinking about, did you miss any important piece of information, an alternative? Did you consider all the relevant criteria? Sometimes you can find that you actually forgot about including a stakeholder. Then you have to reevaluate and reconsider steps 1, 2, and 3. And then the fifth phase is really the implementation phase, when you carry out the decision. So we, in this paper, we wanted to go a little bit deeper and give you some examples on when actually CVA helps you understand and consider values and the value connection. So as Annette explained before, those things are different, and sometimes we can find that alternatives differentiate based on a criterion that is valuable for the customer. So this is in the case where, for example, your values as a company is sustainability, and you want to have a good building. You're thinking about a building that has to have good energy performance. And when you review the actual alternatives within the context, there is a big difference between energy efficiency. So in this case, the value helps you drive the decision, and everything is aligned. Some other times you can find that the alternatives differentiate on values and on things that are not valuable for the customer. So for example, you are selecting an HVAC system in a building, and you find there's a difference in the noise that they generate, but it's actually because of the context of the space. It is actually an outdoor facility, or the place where the HVAC is going to be, it's not going to be relevant for the use of the building. So it's not, that difference is not something valuable for the client. And then the third point, or the third case that you can find when you're applying choosing by advantages, is that you find that some of the alternatives you're evaluating do not differentiate in a criteria that it's valuable for the customer. So for example, we have, you're choosing a material, and you care about the environment. So one of the values is reducing the carbon footprint, but when you review the attributes of the alternatives, you may find there's no difference between the alternatives. Therefore, that's not gonna, that particular value, it's not gonna drive the particular decision. So what we found here is that choosing by advantages offers a systematic process that helps translating the customer value into the decision, and help with having a conversation that is more productive and focus on what actually what the value the alternatives provide for the client or for the stakeholders, not only the client. So value is not a static measurement. It really depends on the context, on who is engaged in the conversation, and what is the scope of the decision. And finally, if we have a transparent, systematic way of making decisions, like choosing by advantages, we can help better understand what are the values of the customer, which drive everyday decisions. And the other thing is that we want to move away from making those decisions without considering value consciously, which we have found in our experience, it is really often the case. So thanks for listening, and we hope we give you a good overview of what the paper is, and please go ahead and read the paper with more details. Thank you.
And thank you very much. We very much looking forward to have a good conversation with you about the paper.
Thank you.
Thank you.